Okay, so our guest is here. Hi, Yogesh. Yeah, so we have CTO of Event Beep, Mr. Yogesh, today with us. He is like skilled in building and scaling products with a strong focus on front-end development and also in user experience. He's like passionate in creating, smooth, engaging interfaces and using tech to help businesses grow. So get ready to learn from his expertise in front-end innovation and design. So let's get started with the session. Over to you, Yogesh.
So yeah, guys, hello everyone, and as I can already see that there are a lot of chats are going on, but we'll come to this part later. Let's get our event get started. And so I give you a brief introduction about myself. So I basically I am a tech entrepreneur. I have myself founded multiple companies in past, and I myself started my career from front end development itself. So front end development is like very core expertise of mine, and I have been in touch with front end development for more than 10 years of my career. So I would say that I might be able to guide you in such a way that you eventually get a right job and a right position, and you eventually learn a lot from this session, and go forward from there itself. So what I have done is, for everyone here who has joined, I have prepared a slideshow which I'll share, through which we will just we'll see everything. How can someone become, coming from a non-technical background or technical background, become a good front-end engineer and actually land a good career pathway ahead in the future. So yeah, let's get started. Let me just share my screen and we can just go through it once. Just give me a second if I'm able to present it to you. I hope my screen is visible to everyone, guys. Okay, perfect. So cool. Let's get started. So this workshop is particularly dedicated on the front end development, but as an overall developer, I would be discussing more about front end also, because you need to understand like how exactly web development works, right? So you will definitely dive into the brief overview of web development. Then we'll go to what is front end and what is back end, because these two things comes together and eventually forms a website, which ends up you ends up creating your product or a project or a service based thing, right? So you need to understand the both paradigms of the complete web development overview. Then we will particularly dive into front-end technologies. There are multiple technologies. I'm pretty sure some of you must be coming from jobs, or some of you must be coming from colleges or just getting started in your job career, right? And you must be having a lot of doubt, which technology is the best, which technology should I study for, or which technology should I invest in more, right? So all these problems, all these doubts will be clearing out in this particular session. So stay tuned till the end, and you will be able to get a good grasp on how you can actually become a good front-end engineer and do great in your career ahead. So these front-end technology will discuss what are the trending market trends which is going on into the front-end technologies. Like you might have heard of Angular JS, React JS, Next JS, right? So all those things we will be covering in that section. After that, we will dive into the best practices, like how a good engineer is working at Myntra, Google, or any of the product-based companies. What are they using it actually? Why they have so much good packages and why their code is so good? What practices they are using it? We'll dive into that section as well. And end of the day, we will have a Q&A session between us. I'll be clearing all your doubts and everything. So, all right. So let's get started, guys. I'll just start with the web development thing, right? Before I dive into this front end and back end, I would like to give an overview about web development, how exactly it works, right? So I'm pretty sure that everyone already have used multiple website. You guys have used YouTube, Instagram, or Google, or any other website, right? So whatever you see on your browser, that is a client side thing. So that is front end. That is visible on the website, that is a front end. And whatever happening on the background, which means that, let's say, your data is getting saved. Let's say you type in something on YouTube, you type in something, let's say you type how to learn Node.js, let's say, right? All those things, all those queries comes from the backend part. So backend stays on the server side and the front end stays on the client side. And front end particularly uses mainly three languages, which is like HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? And all these technologies are being rendered on your browser itself. In the later on the session, I will also show you like how can you actually extract any of the HTML, CSS, or JavaScript from any of the websites, right? And also, how can we actually protect them? Like, let's say you have written any code on the for the front end part, but you don't want anyone to actually copy it. I'll tell you all those tricks as well. But before doing that, you need to understand front end and back end comes together and forms a complete web development overall, right? I mean, back in the days, like, when programming was introduced, like the C, C++, these programming languages came along. They were very too heavy, and they were too complex to actually execute on a server, particularly on the internet, right? So, engineers and scientists thought, we would be needing something lightweight. We would be needing something different technology to actually render things on the web browser, right? Because the web browser sits on each user's laptop, and that is very light. I mean, if you look at your machine's power, it's fairly, it's okay. If you talk about the times when internet was there, like, 1995 between 2000, right? The technology was not so great on the laptop side. Today we have a great laptops nowadays. We have 32 GB RAMs, 16 GB RAMs, right? But back then there was not such that much technology. So what they did is they came up with a very basic language that was first a language in front end development. It was HTML. Now HTML stands for Hypertext Markup Language. These were the technologies that stood for. So that actually differentiated the backend versus front end, right? And backend has like a lot of technologies. You might have heard of Java, Python, Node.js, Ruby on Rails, right? All these technologies works on the background side. They helps in analyzing the data. They helps in storing the data. Performing some tasks or action. All those things happen on the backend. But whatever you see on the screen, whatever which is visible, let's say when you go into the YouTube, that is the icons on the left side of YouTube. Right on side, you can see your profile section icon. All those things are situated using the front end technologies. So that is the major difference between these two. Now we'll dive into the proper tools which we can use. I think this Node.js is not the correct one here. My bad, guys. I think so. Just avoid this. So basically, these are the tools we use for front-end development. First is HTML, CSS, JavaScript. These are the three major technologies we use on front-end development. And to get started on the front-end development, you need to have a code editor. Right now, I uses Visual Studio Code from Microsoft. There are multiple code editors out there like Sublime Text or JetBrains, or recently Google launched its own code editor as well. You can use that as well. So, but I preferably use VS Code. I mean, this is very common in development cycle. So yeah, we prefer that also. And the last thing is that you need to have is a browser where you can actually test like how your code is actually looking like, how the code is actually behaving. So these things must be there. Or you need to download the code editor from any of the websites, whichever you like. I prefer VS Code. You can just directly type in VS Code, download whatever the PC you are on. Let's say you are on Windows or MacBook or Ubuntu. It's available for all of these things, right? And you need to have a single browser, which will eventually help you to see how your code looks like. And at the end of the session, we will look into the JS frameworks also. These are not the tools, but I would say these things you will be needing if you want to become a good front end engineer. So now let's moving on onto the next slideshow. So now when we talk about first, before diving into particular technologies, I would like to understand like why are we doing front end development and how is that helpful, right? So it's pretty obvious to everyone like why do we do it? Because we need to create a website. Let's say we created a design. Let's say you are designing a website for tourism, okay? And the your client or your boss, or let's say you yourself as a founder or entrepreneur wants to create that tourism website, and you think like some wallpaper should come, or let's say some slideshow should come on the website, and then there should be an image, and on bottom of the image there should be some text or some video should be displayed. All those things are UI elements, right? And you can design UI elements anywhere. You can design on Figma, you can design on Adobe Illustrator, you can design on Canva also. There are multiple tools out there. But end of the day, when you design any of the UI elements, you need to shift that into a code part, because websites only render the coding part only. They do not render your UI Canva part or anything like that. So that's why we need to have a good front end engineering stack, so that which can eventually whatever you have thought of as a UI, that can be replicated on the website as well. So let's say you are launching a product tomorrow on tourism, then you need to make sure that yeah, whatever I have thought about the UI part, is looking exactly like what we have been planning for. So therefore we need to have the good user experience on that part. So that's where our first pointers comes along, the user experience, right? You must have noticed all good websites, like let's say you must be using I have already given an example of YouTube, but you must be using e-commerce websites also, you must be reading blogs also, you must have gone through a different product website as well, right? They all have one thing in common, and that one thing is they have a very well designed interfaces. It means that their UI looks so good and so intuitive that you feels like using it again and again, right? It is because they put a lot of efforts onto the UI part, and then once the UI team creates the design, so usually the graphic designers or the product designers, they actually design the websites on Figma, let's say, or a FigJam or Sketch, all those are sort of tools. And then after that they give that designs to the front end developers. Now front end developers job is to make sure that whatever design they have received, it should look exactly like it is looking on the design. So to understand that, you need to understand the technology paradigms also, right? So that's why we need a good front end development, and it makes the first impressions last a longer, right? So this is what user experience. Now coming down to the second point, which is in a high demand. So okay, we all know that we need to convert all any kind of a design front end development using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. But why is that important also? Like for you guys, like for a career wise, you guys are into development. That's why we are all here, right? You must be looking out for jobs, or might be doing jobs as well, right? So you must be aware that front end development is in the highest demand right now. Like even there are like thousands of AI tools are out there, but still front end development is still in so demand because everyone wants to create a website, everyone wants to go onto the app site. And even if there are good AI tools out there, AI is not going to actually help all common user to actually build the complete website from scratch to end. They need to have a good developer altogether, which will help them to actually execute their website onto the onto the market. So you need to have, so every company, every big product based company, or as a service project or any personal project, they eventually you need to have a good front end developer. That's why it's so in high end demand. And also with the rise of JavaScript, right? JavaScript, was introduced as a very basic language, back in days by Mozilla. JavaScript was designed from Mozilla Firefox browser actually, and they launched it within 7 days only. Within 7 days only, they launched it, right? But eventually it got so much popularity that nowadays you can see even the big giants like Google, Facebook, they are launching their own frameworks on JavaScript, and that is all dependent on front end development. So you can see that front end development is mostly in the high demand, and everyone is looking for a good front end developers. Even I myself, I've been working with multiple products in my past, and currently handling Beep as a CTO. We have a good engineering team at our end also, and we have good amount of front end engineers. And I always look out for the good front end engineers. I always ask them, try to create good resumes, try to create good websites all together, so that I can see your GitHub, and I can make sure that you write a good amount of code. So front end engineering will always be in demand, even if we talk about next to 2 or 3 or 5 years, it will still be in demand. And now the last point is why front end development. I mean, why one should go for front end development. Okay, so I tell you a story behind this pointer. Actually, I written this pointer because I felt like this I should tell you, like while I'm attending the session. All of you have joined this session. So most of you might be coming from the technical background. I'm not sure, like but some of them are also not coming from technical background. They must be coming from, let's say, BCom, BBA, or BCA, or also different altogether different background. Let's say. So anyone coming to front end development actually can go to the back end development also, because right now what happens is on the technology stack, if you learn to write code on JavaScript, you are able to easily migrate to back end development as well, right? And front end development is quite easier. So people coming from technical or non-technical background, they can always jump into front end development and they can get started. So it is like initial starter for everyone to just dive into front end development, get started learning, and try to create multiple projects, and then eventually you will get a grasp like how exactly code works, and how can you actually deploy your websites, or deliver projects to your service client based projects, or how can you actually land a great job at a product based companies like, let's say, Myntra, Flipkart, Amazon, Facebook, Netflix, all those things, right? So they all need front end development, and front end development is actually helps you to become a full stack developer, right? Usually what happens is people who dive into backend development, they stay into backend development, because after couple of years, let's say 4 to 5 years later, it's very hard to become a front end developer, because the choice of choosing the UI, to understand the color theory, to understand how user behaves, that requires a lot of energy, and eventually you will not be finding that coming from backend technology. So I would request everyone, like I myself, when I started my career, I started my career with front end development only. I did not dive into backend development, and or nor I did not do like full stack development altogether. No, because taking one technology at a time is the right path. If you're working in front end development, stick into the front end development. First, try to understand it completely. Try to get like how exactly overall it works. Then you should move to the other technology, and that's what I did. Like in initial couple of years of my career, I was in front end development only. I was working for more than 2 to 3 years in front end development. After that, I switched to the backend technology also. Then I became a full stack developer. So this is your pathway to actually reach that level. So that's why front end development is necessary for anyone who is looking to dive into coding, who's looking to make great products or projects. Front end development is your path. All right. So now let's move on. Like, what technologies are there in front end technologies, and what are their roles, and how exactly we can utilize them, right? So let's start with the basics one. We already know that three technologies are the basic backbone in the in front end framework, which is first is HTML, which is hypertext markup language. It is nothing but just a group of tags only, like just like you write a document in a Word file. So I'm pretty sure you all guys have must have prepared your resumes, right? And you, while you are preparing your resume in Microsoft Word, you must have written your heading title H1. You must have used H1 for the heading for your name, and then the underline for your under your name, or let's say link is there, then you must have used underline. And then on the left side you might have written objective, and the description, and then the education qualification, all sort of things, right? So it is like a document, right? Similarly, HTML was created to actually replicate the Microsoft Word document onto the web. That's it. That was the main intention behind HTML only. So if you look at the HTML language, it is mostly just to structure your content on the web. It is just like a document only. That's why we call any page on the website, we call it DOM. If you might have looked at it, this word DOM, 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 document object model. Document object model means it is just just a document only, but it is rendered on the web web altogether. That's why we are calling it HTML DOM. That's what. So HTML is very pretty simple, easy to get started. So that is one of the technologies. Now comes down to the part of second, which is CSS. CSS is used for styling, laying out, or like making font size bigger, smaller, or how to put the boxes left or right or between or center. All sort of things happens using CSS. So HTML and CSS are like brothers and sisters. They go parallelly, and they basically help each other to actually create the overall layout or overall view for your website. So these two things you will be learning initially parallelly. The once you are able to understand like how this HTML works and CSS works, then you actually dive into their frameworks. There are multiple frameworks for CSS also. I mean, you might have heard of Bootstrap, right? Bootstrap is a CSS framework, or you might have heard of Tailwind CSS also. So Tailwind CSS is also a framework on top of CSS. These frameworks actually does nothing but helps you to write code faster. That's all these frameworks, libraries which are out there, they actually helps you to write your whatever the code you're writing for a particular technology. For example, you are writing code in CSS, let's say. So you are writing a code in CSS, and let's say you are using some particular display property again and again, right? So what these frameworks do is they actually helps you to write code faster. That's why these frameworks were invented, so you can build your product faster, deliver your projects to your client faster. That's all. But underneath, the technology remains same. The technologies are HTML, CSS only. Now coming down to the biggest and revolutionary technology of our decade, which is JavaScript. Now we already discussed, like, JavaScript was designed and developed by Mozilla Firefox, you know, and they actually hold the rights for JavaScript. So whatever the new updates comes, it is always launched upon the Mozilla Firefox official documentation. You can always go there, Google it, and you will see all the documentation is on the developer Mozilla Firefox documentation page. And so when they created JavaScript technology, it was just, created for, making a website interactive, or just a bit of, dynamic functionalities are there. For example, simply, let's say, when you click on a button, or let's say an image pops up, or even and you click on the close button, the image goes out, right? So it's a very basic interactive thing, right? But it is not possible with using HTML and CSS. You need to have a JavaScript to perform those kind of things. So for those things, it was invented. But right now, if you look at the JavaScript scope, JavaScript has become so big. It has become so big that if you understand JavaScript properly, then you can always dive into the backend technology also, because JavaScript has now functional components, class components. JavaScript was actually a scripting language. That's why its name is JavaScript, right? But now, if you look at the JavaScript, JavaScript is not a scripting language. JavaScript is a programming language now, because it has so much functionalities attached to it. It has instances features, it has object features, it has function features. So there are a lot of couple of things have been added. So whoever is coming to front end technology, I request and I suggest everyone to pay full attention to the JavaScript, because it will help you a lot in succeeding and or also learning in other technologies. All right. And after that, JavaScript got popular. There are like couple of frameworks are out there, which are like React.js, AngularJS, Vue.js, right? All these frameworks are out there. These frameworks are designed on top of JavaScript, right? And eventually, so whatever the code you write in React.js or AngularJS, eventually it gets converted into JavaScript only, and then it's get rendered on your browser. So end of the day, your browser only understand three things: HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. That's all. Other than this, it does not understand a thing. So that's why React.js, whenever you create a website on React.js, you need to build your package, and then after the building, you get a particular folder that you need to actually give it to the browser, and then browser actually renders it. So yeah, these are the things. And then there are multiple questions raised for React.js or AngularJS. Which framework should I go for? Let's say React.js or AngularJS. So I would say that you can go for any of the frameworks. I mean, it depends upon you, or depends upon the technology, or depends upon the product which you are actually creating. So, but I give you a simple one definition line for these two technology. If you have to understand which technology which I should go for. So whenever you need to create things from scratch, or let's say you want to do everything from scratch, then go for React.js. Or let's say you don't want to do from scratch and you want some things to be there, let's say routing, animations, or all sort of features that these frameworks provide, then you should go for AngularJS, because AngularJS comes with a complete package. React.js is like a very boilerplate. It does not contain anything. Everything you have to do manually. So this is the major difference between these two frameworks. Now it's coming down to the front end devs pay, which are the things which makes you a good front end developer actually, right? What makes you stand out from the mediocre developers, and you become a really good developer from the rest of the other people, right? So these are the basic things actually I have listed down here, but there are like more than 1,000 things. If I have to talk about front end development particularly, like what are the best practices, I might able to write a book, or maybe it would take me around more than 1 month or 2 months to actually explain it. But for this particular session, I have curated these 3 to 5 pointers for you to always keep in mind, because these are the basic things that you need to have or need to understand as a good front-end developer, right? So first thing is semantic HTML. Like when I say semantic HTML, semantic HTML means that you need to structure your HTML code in such a way that even some other developer comes along and he wants to understand your code or your structure, he is able to understand it very quickly. They should not be very messy. You should not create a messy code around it. If you are using a particular div, and you basically defines another div under it, and then there's another div after it, you need to structure in such a way that it's very easy to understand. It is very easy to render it on browser, right? Also, whenever you're writing a semantic HTML, your HTML tag should be SEO compatibles also, right? And when I say SEO compatible tags, it is very important, guys. SEO compatible tags means whenever you actually create your website and when you launch it on your domain, whatever domain you are on, and then eventually what happens is you want Google to actually rank it up, right? You want your website to go up in the ranking, but it does not go there because sometimes what developers usually make a mistake is that they don't follow these semantic and good SEO tags out there. So SEO demands few of the tags to be there. For example, any of the page which gets loaded, it demands that there should be a one H1 tag. It always demands it. Google prioritize all those web pages who have H1 tags on the heading part because it understands that you have written it very formally and there is a proper heading is there, very proper title is there, then there is a description is coming in, right? So there are a list of things which can you can do in terms of semantic HTML and SEO tags, so that you need to follow up on. Now coming down to the second one, which is CSS naming convention. CSS naming convention means once you start writing your code, right, the your application gets bigger and bigger and bigger, right? So the your CSS code also gets bigger and bigger, right? So usually what happens is, like, let's say two or three developers are working at the same time, they get confused between the classes names. So sometimes it looks good on my PC, but as soon as I push my code and one of my other developer actually pulls the code and start developing on that particular repository, he or she faces a problem like, my code is not working correctly, but your code is working correctly, or my code is working fine, but your code is not working fine. Few of these things come up because what they have done is they have mentioned multiple names, or you could say, like, similar names for a particular class, and they are using those but at a different position. So you need to make sure that a naming convention should be there. If you are working on a particular feature, let's say events, then the CSS should go along with the events part only. And then now let's say you are working on a feature, let's say courses, then the CSS naming convention should follow the courses component. So that's how you differentiate between these naming conventions. Now coming down to the JavaScript coding standards. So there are like a couple of things that I would request everyone to follow on JavaScript coding standards. One of the major thing I would recommend, if you want to get a good hands-on JavaScript, if you want to become a good developer in JavaScript, I would suggest that as soon as you finish up JavaScript, you should start learning TypeScript also, because TypeScript is nothing but a superset of JavaScript only. So basically, what happens is whatever you have learned in JavaScript, it is already there in TypeScript. But on top of that, there are a couple of things which makes it a very strongly bounded language. JavaScript is by default a very loose string language. So let's say you can define any of the data type. There is just like var and things like that. But nowadays in ES6 we have let, const, right? We have does, but still there are things in JavaScript which makes it a very loose binded. For example, let's say you write a function and whatever the arguments you pass on a function, it should return that argument value only. That is the best practices. But in JavaScript you can pass any type of argument and you can return any type of data type also, which is not right. But JavaScript allows you to do that. So to stop doing that, you should be having TypeScript in your place. So one of the best things, if you want to have a good coding standards in JavaScript, always go for TypeScript after that. So yeah, this is one of the things. And ES6 is nothing but a latest version of JavaScript which was launched in somewhere around 2016. And so it allows, and it promotes every developer to use let, const, functions, and destructuring and error functions. And there are so many things, but these are the basic things that you should have keep in mind. While dealing with variables, it becomes so much problem. So back then there was only one data type in JavaScript, which was var. That's it. The var was the data type. But now we have let, const. So let is basically scope variable. If you can define, const is something where you need to define only constant values. So this is good for those things. Now coming down to the frameworks part. So component driven development. So component driven development means basically whenever you use a framework, any of framework, Angular, React, Vue, anything, what you need to make sure that whenever you are creating these whenever you're creating components into these frameworks, for example, let's say you are creating a function component or a class component, I would recommend or suggest everyone to use function components, because class component has gone out of the box now, because they class components are quite difficult to write. The syntax is not up to the mark. That's why all these big giants and all these big companies have let down the class naming conventions, and they have all come up to the functional components only. So whenever you're writing a function component, try to write it in such a way that it is reusable, right? Reusable means, let's say you are creating a function which actually helps you to change the color of a color of a particular div, right? So let's say I want that particular component to use multiple places. Let's say I want to use it on a home page, I want to use it on about us also, I want to use it on contact us also. So what I'll do is I'll create a separate function for this, and create this function in such a way that I can use it anywhere I want. I'll just import this function and simply call it upon. So I just have to call it, and automatically my function will work. So this is how you create reusable components. And this what this does is like it's reduce your duplication in your code. Also, you can have a good scalability on your component system. Now, the last part is testing. So testing is the most crucial part whenever you design a good product or a good project. It is the most crucial part, because what happens is, usually developers, what they do is they create the website, they start loving it. Usually this happens with developers also. Like they fall into the love, like whatever the product they are building, and they don't see that there are some flaws, there are some things that might go crash, they might get disturbed also, right? So what you have to do is, like, whatever the component you create, let's say you are creating a component which calls an API from the backend, let's say. So I give a very fair example. It is most likely to happen with you also. So as soon as you call an API, let's say the API takes some data from the user, and basically returns some output from the taking a request from the server. Now what happens? Let's say you taken the user's input, but the API call did not happen. Then what happens? So your API call gets crashed, right? But the user is sitting idle on your on the laptop, and he's thinking like, this website is working. It has taken my data, and it is returning some output. But you did not actually handle that situation. So this is where the testing comes along. You need to have a good test cases. You can write test cases in React.js also. You can write test cases in Angular, Vue.js, all other framework or library. You can write these test cases, and that will help you to actually optimize your code. Otherwise, there will be a lot of functions which will be getting crashed, and you won't even know. And eventually, you will lose a lot of customers, and your conversion rate will be very low. So you don't want to do that. So you need to make sure that you write test cases also. All right, so these are the best practices for the front-end devs. I'll just dive into the fun facts about front-end development. That it's not fun facts, but just the basic information. Since you guys are going to dive into front-end development engineering, you should be able to know that how got started actually. So as I already mentioned, HTML was created just first language in the web. It was designed to have very lightweight and can be able to render on the internet, because on the internet, if you want to render C++, it was not possible at that time. Nowadays we use C++, Java, and all sort of technologies on the backend servers, and they run fully functional and very good and smoothly also, because now we have a good technology, we have a good systems and engineering in place. But back then there was nothing as such. That's why HTML was created. After that, CSS was introduced along with HTML only. After a couple of years of HTML, CSS was introduced to actually change how things looks. Then after that, scientists and developers realized that CSS also have needs to improve also, right? So what they did is they launched HTML1, then HTML2, HTML3, HTML5. Whatever you see nowadays on the website, that is HTML5. Similarly, whatever the new function, if you want to use it, you need to have CSS3. Now, so CSS3 basically have transition, animations, flexbox, positioning, box layout, and all sort of other design things, which actually helps you to design your website faster way. And JavaScript was created into the labs of Microsoft only. Like, oh no, sorry, Mozilla Firefox. So Mozilla Firefox owns JavaScript, and they actually launched their official documentation. So that is my next pointer in itself. So If you want to learn, let's say there might be a couple of questions coming from the everyone, and I get a lot of from students also, like where should I actually get started, where should I actually get understand, where should I get like the basic glimpse, like about this technology or that technology. So I will always recommend whichever technology you want to learn. Okay, it's not about JavaScript, it's not about HTML or anything. It's about overall technology only. If you want to learn any technology, always go on to their official documentation, because official documentation has the clearer picture, right? They actually makes you understand and what are the features are there, how does this technology actually works, and why have we designed this technology for that particular use case, right? So always go onto the official documentation. There are good documentation on HTML, CSS. If you want to go study like JavaScript only, Mozilla Firefox provides that. If I just type like just to show you like JavaScript official, the documentation, so you can see that developer.mozilla.org. As you if you go there, you will see the official complete documentation on JavaScript. You can literally study every single topic or the features which JavaScript has. Most of the time students are like, sir, I have not even heard of this keyword name, or I have not even heard of this feature name. So it happens because they have not gone to the official documentation. They are always sticking to the YouTube videos or some random videos which does not make any sense. I always recommend students to not to waste any more time on YouTube free videos or all sort of thing. Always find particular niche people or particular engineers or developers who have at least worked 10 years in that particular technology, and they have created a good products in that technology. Those people can actually help you and understand you that these things you should learn, right? And if you don't have those people, or let's say you don't have any idea, then go to the official documentation. So I myself, sometimes whenever JavaScript launches and the new features, I always go first onto this MDN, which is Mozilla Firefox, and I just go through these left hand side pointers and just start writing it. If you can see it here, in tutorials they have like complete beginners, JavaScript basics, and then they have intermediate also, and then they have advanced level also. Then how can you do all this inheritance, prototype, concurrency, or all sort of things. So yeah, these things are there, and where you can actually don't waste your time and get started on those things. All right. Moving on to the question and answers. I'll be happy to answer any of you guys have whatever the questions you have guys. Just try to type in your questions in the chat box we have here. All right. We have a question from Piyush here. What is the best way to learn front-end development? So Piyush, this is a very good question, and I've been keep telling this again and again. This is for everyone, guys. So for learning front-end development, there are particular three things, right? HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, right? So you need to understand first JavaScript, HTML, CSS, and JavaScript from Mozilla Firefox official documentation. Or there are a couple of websites for front-end development, like W3 schools also. Or if you want, if you think like I'm not able to understand from the textual format, let's say there are a couple of blogs there, but I'm not able to understand it, I want someone who actually understand on a course or a particular thing, then I would always recommend people to go for the courses who are taught by the very senior people, or the people who have actually worked upon that particular area, right? So someone who is having at least 10 years of experience in front end technology, those guys should be only teaching you, and you should be able to opt for their courses only. So that is the right way to go, Piyush. Pratik, which stack is the best, mean or mud? Pratik, that does not does not matter actually. To be honest, either you go for mean technology. So there is a difference between mean and mud. Is simply just the Angular JS and React JS. That's it. So M mean means M stands for MongoDB, E stands for ExpressJS, A stands for AngularJS, and N stands for Node.js. Similarly, in MERN stack there is instead of A we have R, and R stands for React.js. So the question is that you should go for React.js or AngularJS. So as I already said, if you want to have things overall in a bundle package, and you don't want to do much of coding things, right? You want everything, let's say animations, routing, all sort of things, then you should all go for AngularJS. Or let's say you have interest in that particular area, then you should go for AngularJS. Otherwise, React.js is there. Also, I tell you one big difference between AngularJS and React.js. React.js is a library, okay? and AngularJS is a framework. So when I say framework, framework comes with a lot of features. It has a single thing, and around it there are a lot of features. But when it comes to React.js, it is just a boilerplate. You have to define routing by yourself. You have to define state management by yourself. You have to define animation by yourself. Everything you have to do manually. But the scope of working in React.js is much bigger than AngularJS. Why I'm telling you this? Because I'm pretty sure that you understand front-end development, everything's okay. But at the end of the day, you need to have a job, right? You need to earn good amount of money also, right? That is why we are all doing this, correct? So right now, the market for React.js is so big that AngularJS can't compete with it right now. So I recommend you, Pratik, right? Yeah, Pratik, all try to go for React.js because it has a good market, and eventually you will be able to land a good job with a good package in React.js compared to AngularJS. Another question was Pratik. I choose PHP for backend developing. It's better or not? Okay, Pratik. So this is another Pratik joke. Okay, so this is a good question. People are getting confused with the backend technologies also. So I would say Pratik joke. PHP is not a bad language. I am not against any of the languages as such. But if you are learning or developing the backend with PHP in this current time, then it's not a good sign because PHP has gone very outdated. Even the servers or the things which are coming in, they are not supported on PHP. So even if you learn, that's a good thing. Learning is not a bad part. You should be able to understand, all technologies perks. What are the benefits, what are their negative points also, right? So with the negative point for PHP is that it has gotten old and people are not using it. So that's why the community support is also going out for PHP. And if you're just getting started on backend technology, then I would say don't invest too much time in PHP. Rather, invest your time learning, let's say, Ruby on Rails or Python or Node.js. These are very good technologies right now, and they have a good market also. You can get, let's say, thousands of jobs for Node.js. There are thousands of jobs that are available. People are hiring for Node.js developers, but for PHP, you will find that very couple of jobs are getting out, and it's not payable enough also. So it's a waste of time for yourself, and eventually you will get into backend technology. Then I would say go with Node.js, Ruby, or Python. How qualities should we have not get front end internship? Okay, what qualities you should have to get front end internship? Okay, so qualities is basically to get any of the internship, and for particularly front end development internship, you need to understand how HTML works, how CSS works, and the basics of JavaScript. That's it. And if you know all these three things, try to create a small project. Try to create a very small project and push it on GitHub. So what happens is, Sanidhi, I tell you, my personal experience. I get, hundreds of requests on my LinkedIn, and people message me on my email also. Freshers usually message me, sir, I want to get hired, or let's say, I want to join as an intern, and I always go through the messages and mails. But I always prefer the students whose resumes has GitHub profile link, because if you have a GitHub profile link, it will be very easy for an employer or for me to actually see that how much knowledge you have, how much work have you done previously. So if you're developing, very small project also, I would also believe that, yeah, you at least have done some work, right? And the trust becomes bigger and bigger for you, and eventually the chances of getting you hired are more than other developers. So always have GitHub link in your resume, and try to build small project. Let's say you created a blog project, or a to-do application project, or let's say e-commerce project, very basic project. Just create a layout of website using, let's say, HTML, CSS, or let's say React.js, and try to push it on GitHub, and then share that resume link with your employer. Then there are good chances that you are getting hired. Okay, all right. We have another question for Sanjay. Which tools and frameworks should be learned for full stack development? Well, there are a couple of tools. I mean, Sanjay, tools and frameworks are there. But before diving into the tools and frameworks, I would suggest you to first learn the technologies. First, learn the basic programming languages to understand the overall full stack development. So, and full stack development is a combination of front end and back end together. And on the front end, as we already speak, right, the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. And then on the backend side, you need to understand Node.js or any of the backend technology, let's say Java, Python, Ruby on Rails, any single technologies. Then along with that, you need to understand the databases also. there are a couple of databases like MySQL, PostgreSQL, MongoDB, right? So you need to understand one database also. Then you need to understand how servers behave, like AWS servers, DigitalOcean servers, or Microsoft Azure servers, or Google Cloud. You need to understand how they behave and how they actually perform. Then all you combine all those things together, then you become a full stack developer. Then on top of that, you start working on frameworks, development tools, and all sort of things. Okay, so I'm getting this question again. So to get an internship, so everyone who's looking for internship, this is my very crystal clear answer, and it will help you a lot, guys. Simply try to create small projects first. Try to create very just get started. Don't think like I have to create this big project or something like that. No, that doesn't work. What you should do is just create a small project, try to create with the HTML, CSS, or it's very good that if you try to create it with React.js also. Then what happens is like you push that project onto your GitHub profile. GitHub is a place, right? GitHub is a place where you can actually host your repositories there. Where so which from there itself I can analyze, how good is your coding standards are, how good you are your writing, and if I like your code, if I like your design, I will definitely try to hire you. So that is the right way to go there. All right. So we have another question with Pratik Job. What type of projects created to full stack developer to get their resume? Okay, good. So that's a very good question. If you want to become a full stack developer, so there are multiple projects. I mean, Pratik, you can go with any project. I would say if you're making a full stack project, then start with a blog system. Where people can come, they can sign up on your website, then they can register it, and then they can start writing blogs for you. Then you can then approve them from the admin side, and then automatically that get published on the website, right? So it's a very basic blog system. Or you can start with e-commerce website also. E-commerce is a complete full-fledged full front end back end combination of couple of things. So those kind of a project you can put on your resume. Satyapa here, Node.js versus PHP, best language, sir. Okay, so Satyapa, there is no as such comparison. PHP is good at what they best, and Node.js is good at what it does is best, right? But for now, for looking at the current marketing trends, I would say Node.js is the rightest language right now because one thing, you need a job, right? And of course, so for Node.js, there are good opportunities out there. Second, Node.js is supported by all of the community in development industry. So every good framework, every good technology which is coming out, they all support Node.js, but they do not support PHP. So it's a hurdle. So let's say I am making a big product and I want to use a payment gateway. Let's say, okay, I want to use Razorpay gateway, but let's say Razorpay says I do not support your PHP framework. I only support Node.js. So what I have to do is I have to rewrite the entire PHP code into the Node.js part, and then tie up with Razorpay. So it becomes a problem for me. Then so this is a clear sign that I should not be using PHP. I should be using Node.js at that time. So Node.js is the right answer for this current market trend. Then moving on to the next question, guys. Vidit Rathod, how can I learn database with frontend? So Vidit, frontend does not require database. Okay, frontend does not, because frontend does not have the capability to store data on servers, because servers languages are different, right? For example, JavaScript cannot talk to servers. JavaScript HTML CSS can only talk to the browsers only, which is on the client side, right? So you cannot learn database with front-end technologies. So front-end technologies are very separate. If you want to learn database, then you have to learn with the back-end technology, which means let's say you need to start with Node.js or Ruby on Rails or Python. These are the things. Okay, Manpreet is here. So you're talking about creating a small project, but in our first internship, the two of us designed 160 pages. Okay, using HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Even after that, we still haven't gotten a job as companies are not hiring. Okay, Manpreet, this is not how things works. So sometimes what happens is people, like, it's a very wrong perception that people are not hiring freshers. We do not recommend that. In our inside our company itself, we have hired more than 10 people as a freshers, and they are working so good, and we have promoted them as well. So, and companies are looking for freshers. It's not about the amount of pages you have to create, it's about the level of code you actually bring out onto the table, right? It's not about just keep on creating similar design again and again. No, what you have to understand is that the complexity of a particular project. For example, you create a blog, right? You create a single blog, but the complexity will rise once I ask you to create a feature, a single feature, which is like you need to ask user to actually first log in, then they can only read your blog. Then you have to create the entire authentication flow. Then you have to think about, okay, registration page will be there, then the login page will be there. Okay, after the login page there will be a forgot password will be there, or if login with OTP will be there, or login with Google will be also there, login with Facebook will be there. Now you see the amount of features gets involved just because of a single feature. So that's those kind of thinking you have to understand, right? It's not about just using HTML, CSS and creating thousands of pages. No, it's about the getting into the core of technology. So I recommend you don't invest too much time in HTML, CSS. Once you understand it, try to start writing code on React.js side, because React.js will actually help you to build good amount of application. Try to create a complete block architecture application which works flawlessly. Like users can come, they can just use sign up on your website, then they can log in with mobile number, they can log in with your email ID, they can log in with Google, Facebook. Then they go on to the dashboard. From their dashboard, they can start writing the blogs. Then they can start posting it also. So all sort of features will come, in React.js itself. What are the recommendations for freelancing and full-time roles? Okay, so recommendations for, I mean, I'm not sure like in what sense you're asking, but I'll try to answer you, Sanjay. So recommendation is for full-time roles. So first you need to understand it. Do you want to do full-time or do you want to do freelancing? Or either way, whatever you're doing, it's your time. You know how to invest it better. But my suggestion to you, Sanjay, is that whatever you're doing, you are doing freelancing or full-time work anywhere. You don't stop learning. Never stop learning. Even if you're, let's say you're working in an HTML, CSS work, but if it's getting bored and you're not able to grow yourself, then you need to do a side thing. Side thing means where you actually sit on a laptop with yourself and then start learning other technologies, and that's how you grow. And it's very good that if you have a company where they are people are forcing you to learn new technology and asking you to build things upon it, that is the best thing can happen to anyone, because you are learning along the way while you are doing a job. So that's the best thing. But sometimes what happens is, even let's say you are doing a freelancing and you're just making a freelance project, and which is very basic, it's very easy to make it. But now the most of the time you are getting free. So don't get free. Let's say you have understood HTML, CSS, then dive into JavaScript. If you understood JavaScript, start work making on React.js. If you understood React.js, then try to create complex projects out of it, right? If you understand that fully, then start publishing on your portfolio. So that's what you have to do. Okay, next question. Best websites to learn Node.js and React.js. Well, I would say for React.js, yeah, I have myself learned React.js from their official documentation page only. I have gone to the React.js page, documentation. Just simply type on Google React.js official website, and they will redirect to the React.js documentation. There I have read it. Node.js also I have read it, but for Node.js I have taken a course from one of the biggest mentor. He taught in Google also, and I took his course. He has like 15 years of experience, and from that I know I learned a lot from for Node.js. And we are also soon launching as a Beep company. We are launching a couple of courses who are taught by more than 10 plus of experience, and they have great skills in their particular domain, and they will be releasing courses through our platform. And it will be coming soon. So don't worry, guys. We are getting good amount of courses to you. Sir, I have a doubt that how can I implement JavaScript in my project, sir? I have working live data for my project. How can I fix the problem? Okay, simply if you have to get started on the JavaScript, it is very simple because JavaScript is already embedded in your browser, so you don't have to do anything. All you have to do is just create a single file in your folder. Just name it as, let's say, script.js or main.js or app.js, whatever the name you want to have. Just put the extension .js after that. Okay, once you do that, once you put that in JS, now where the file becomes a JavaScript file, and inside that you can start writing your any kind of a code you want to write it in. So that's how easy it is. Cool. I think I have answered most of the people here, and thanks so much, guys. Like it was really good having session with you. You guys were good, and good questions also overall. Nothing something good questions. All right. So what I'll do is, guys, I'll also share my LinkedIn profile with you guys. You guys can connect with me on LinkedIn, and I can definitely help you to, land your first internship or job or whatever it is. Stay connected there, and that will help you a lot in your career. And I would say that, for the last thing, don't stop learning. Always invest good amount of time in coding, because eventually coding is something like tapasya only. You know, back in days, sons used to do tapasya. That's what the coding is all about. You have to stay consistent. You have to stay idle, on a seat, and just keep on doing your coding work, and then eventually it will help you a lot in progressing your career. So yeah, I think, thanks so much. Thank you so much, guys, and for having me here. And if you want to connect more with me, do ping me on LinkedIn. I'm pretty active there. So yeah, over to you, Manjri.
Okay, thank you, Yogesh,
Yep.
for this wonderful session. It was lovely having you, and I hope that like all of the students that those who have joined must have got like insightful information from this session. Okay, Yogesh. So thank you so much for joining, and like I would like to introduce you all to our front-end development course certification workshop here, and I'll just walk you guys quickly through this PPT and what are we offering in this course. So let me introduce you like a little bit about Beep. So Beep is a platform that fills the gap between students and industry. We have been also awarded and recognized by government of Maharashtra and education, then director of COP, president of MITWPU, and our founder Saurabh Mangrolkar has been awarded and recognized by TEDx and a lot of other well-known institutes. Then we have been also featured in top medias like Aaj Times Now, News 18. Here's also we have been appeared on Shark Tank, and here's a quick pitch. So here are few course highlights, program highlights that I will like to tell you guys. So it's like learn anytime and anywhere. We'll be providing you certification of completion, then real world project experience, lifelong opportunity, then community supports, lifetime access to courses. So these are few like features that we are providing. So the average package that we offer is from 7 LPA to 14 LPA. I mean, that's something really huge package. And also you will be having 1 year placement support after you purchase or after you take the course. Then you'll also have one-on-one mentorship and guidance from the industry experts. Then the micro degree cost. Okay, so it is like 8,999, but we are providing exclusive webinar offers for the attendees, which is at 999 only. So the micro degree course we are offering is only for 999, and here is Beep Career Pro. So Beep Career Pro is the launch that we are going to make like coming soon, and let me introduce you to Beep Bytes as well. So like Beep Bytes are going to be something that is essential skills and insights to help you stand out. So these are going to be small bites from which you will get insights within quick like something like reels on Instagram that you watch. So you'll also get access to pro communities where you'll get connected to industry experts and mentors, and exclusive resources as well to your particular field. And we are offering this for free to the webinar attendees only. The original price is like 2,999, but this is completely free for you guys. And the course, as well already mentioned, it's for 999.
Our courses, Frontend Development, Node.js, Express, are now live. Register now on the link given in the description.